I don't care how you think, I don't care how you feel, I care how you behave. I can behave my way into changing my mindset, but I can't think my way into changing my behavior necessarily.
Isaac, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I was a person who always wanted to get to the top of whatever I did. When it was the fashion industry, it was Paris Fashion Week. When it was nightlife, the best nightclubs.
And then you get there and you're just still empty. This doesn't feel the whole.
Yes, it's amazing that I get to travel around the world. Yes, it's amazing that I get to meet these people who I only ever read about in magazines, but it doesn't necessarily change how you feel about yourself on the inside. When I was young, I experienced bullying. All I wanted was to get invited to the party. Subconsciously, I set about creating this life where I would be indispensable to the party. The first I Like You party that I threw had 800 people show up, and the next one had 1,000, and then I threw one to 3,000 people.
Did you feel validated?
No, I felt like an imposter. I'm not a real DJ. The only reason people have shown up is because of social media. I'm an influencer DJ, which is not a real thing. Everybody's gonna know that I'm fake. Constant self-doubt. If my happiness is contingent on something happening, I've already lost.
A lot of my healing has been I'm allowed to exist even if I'm not productive. I'm worthy of existing even if I'm not being successful, but
that's hard.
It's really hard.
That's hard. I spent hundreds and hundreds of hours in therapist's office talking about my bad relationship with Instagram, and yet it's paying my rent.
I could imagine sitting where you are. It's it's a dream come true, but at the same time, is it everything you thought it would be? You're listening to How I See It, hosted by Han. You guessed it, that's me. I am here to motivate and inspire you with guests from all different industries and backgrounds. So get ready for personal stories of success, of growth, full of highs and lows, and of course, unapologetic realness. This is How I See It. Okay, you guys, I am so excited to introduce you to Isaac Hindin-Miller. You may recognize him, or you may recognize his voice from his interviews on his online city guide page, I Like You, or you may know him from his I Like You parties. Isaac is a DJ, a writer, an interviewer, and he's also a men's fashion creator, I would say. So Isaac, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good to be here.
I'm so happy that you're here. I told you over email, I have been following you for so long. I love your content. I love what you do. Also, my best friend Brittany speaks so highly of you. So I was
shout out Brittany.
I know, shout out to Brittany. So I really wanted you on, and I actually think the timing is perfect because the more I've gotten to read of your story now that you're writing on Substack, the more I'm I knew I just really loved this person's energy, and you're so vulnerable online. So I'm just really excited to have you.
Thank you. It's really nice to be here. Thank you.
I'm just curious, why I Like You? Why did you name it that?
Oh, this is such an annoying story. When I started a blog in 2008, okay? And imagine starting a blog in 2008 was like starting a TikTok account in January 2020, okay?
Yeah.
It was everybody was starting blogs. And most people would start them and would write posts for a month and then would never do it again. And I committed myself and I did it, right? And my favorite blog when I first started my blog was one that was called Stuff White People Like, and it was a comedy blog with just an endless list of stupid stuff that corny white people like. It was really funny. And they ended up having a book that was sold in Urban Outfitters and stuff. And so I was I like that. And then I was Isaac likes. And so I ended up having I Like You as the sign off of every single blog post I ever wrote. And I wrote over 2,000 blog posts over 10 years.
That's so cool. I feel so How Han Sees It is my blog creator platform, and then the podcast is How I See It. And I'm very similar because I love to write too, and I think having that thing it's just how I see it, to have that sign off that resonates so much with you, I think is really, really cool.
For sure.
You were a writer.
I kind of did every job in the fashion industry that you can do. I did everything from, I was a junior agent at a modeling agency when I was 21 years old. I sold fabric at a fabric wholesalers. I worked for menswear designers. I drove vans for fashion companies. I did everything. I was a driver of VIP guests at New Zealand Fashion Week.
Wow.
And then I styled a couple of shoots for a local menswear magazine in New Zealand. And then I pitched them stories and started writing stories. And so that was cool. The original job. I identified that in New Zealand there was nobody who was really writing honest articles about the business of fashion in New Zealand and about what was really going on in the industry. And I was like, I want to be that guy. And so I did that.
So cool. Were you always into fashion?
Yeah.
I've loved fashion my entire life. I'm a like fashion creator, quote unquote. So I go to like fashion week, but you go to like fashion week. You are like in it. Like,
I started really young as well. So I started in hairdressing salons when I was like 14 years old.
Wow.
And that's how that was the first job that I ever had. And I would work in salons after school. And I think one thing about me is that like whatever I did from a really young age, like I wanted to be at the best possible version of it. So like I lived in the city called Christchurch. There was a hairdressing salon called Carl Watkins, which was like this powerhouse salon. And they used to do, TV stars, and they would do like editorials for magazines and stuff like that. And they were the salon. And so I was like, I have to work. I'm not going to work at any salon. I have to work at that salon. So I got a job there, and I finished high school, was like, well, actually, I flunked out of high school, basically. I did not graduate high school, and at 17 years old, I find myself like, everybody's going to university, and I'm going to go work at this salon. And so I did that for like a year, and like they would have these magazines flown in from these like import magazines from Paris, from Milan, from all these things, and I'd see these photos and I'd be like, that's the world I want to be in.
I mean, you were writing in your Substack about like in the same like sentence, it was like, I went to Gucci and met this model, and then I met this artist and went into this exhibit, and then I went to LV. And I could imagine like sitting where you are, it's like it's a dream come true, but at the same time, like, is it everything you thought it would be?
Yeah, I mean that's the $10 million question. I mean, yeah, so what I wrote,
existential
question.
Yeah,
that is the existential question. Is anything what we thought it was going to be? Like, I always say, like, be careful what you wish for, because you'll get it. I think that our glamorized idea of anything from the outside is always going to be far more exciting and far more beautiful and far more seamless than the reality. But like, yes, it's amazing that I get to travel around the world. Yes, it's amazing that I get to meet these people who I only ever read about in magazines, or that I only ever saw in movies or in TV shows and stuff. Like, yes, that's an incredible thing, but it doesn't necessarily change how you feel about yourself on the inside.
Totally. I mean, I think at the end of the day, like, especially like people like us, and I can tell just from the way you're talking, like you're very highly ambitious. Like you're just like, I want the top, I'm going to get it.
Yeah.
And then you get there and you're just like still empty. And I think it's about having this realization of like, this doesn't feel the whole, like this doesn't feel the void.
Totally.
Did you have that moment as you were like starting? And
I have that moment every day. Every day I have to do work in order to try and fill that hole with other things, in order to not be desperately grabbing at things to try and make myself feel better. And some days I desperately grab at things to make myself feel better, and other days I'm like much more zen.
Yeah, well, I think that's the human condition, right? And I do think like accepting that helps it all feel better. Because I think for a while I would get into this space where I'm like beating myself up constantly of like, I should be happy. Like, this is what I wanted to do. Like, I'm doing it. I'm successful. Like, why am I not happy? Why am I not happy? And it's just at the end of the day, like, this is just being human. Like, you're never going to be content. And if you can find peace in the mundanity of it all, then maybe you can actually start to feel happy.
Yeah. But also I think that contentment has to be the goal more than happiness is the goal. For me, anyway, like, I'm like, if I'm chasing happiness, like, that's so fleeting. Like, I feel happy and then it goes away. I feel happy and then it goes away. But like, I have to try and chase like being okay with how things are. So like, I have to chase acceptance. I have to chase contentment.
Yeah. I mean, and then redefining like, what is happiness? Like, it's so relative. Like for me, like happiness is just like peace. Like if I'm feeling peace and like some of the voices are quiet that day, like I'm good. And I think I used to have this expectation, like everything is going to be perfect, or everything is going to like feel like I have it together. And it's just, I've killed that. And I think finally I actually feel like a little bit more at peace.
Yeah. If my happiness is contingent on something happening, I've already lost. So like, I'll be happy when like I've got a big problem, if that's what I'm chasing.
Well, I think that's a really good segue into your story. And maybe I have like a stereotype in my head of like what a DJ is, but you are not the stereotypical like DJ. Like even the fact that the first, 5 minutes of our conversation is already this, I feel like I don't picture usually people who are in nightlife having these types of conversations. And maybe that's my own judgment, but like what brought you to wanting to do that? And how, and I know you write about it in your Substack, like how has your perception on it changed?
Yes, so I was a person who always wanted to like get to the top of whatever, I did. And so when it was the fashion industry, it was Paris Fashion Week, it's Milan Fashion Week, it's New York, it's London, right? When it was nightlife, it was like the best nightclubs, it was the best, like whatever. But also that's all relative, because like for a lot of people, the best nightclub in the world is Berghain, right? In Berlin. And that is the pinnacle. And I have zero interest in electronic music, and I have no interest in techno. So for me, that like I've never been I'm friends with the guy who like runs the door at Berghain, and I can go, and I haven't been just because like this is not something that I'm like passionate about, right?
Yeah.
But I grew up obsessed with commercial hip hop. Like that was my life.
Awesome.
Like I was like so into commercial hip hop. And so I moved to New York City, and I get the opportunity to go to these like nightclubs that are, you know, like these hip hop music videos that I watched when I was growing up. And I was like, oh my God, I have arrived. Like this is everything I ever wanted. But when I was young, I moved schools. I was like 7 years old, and all the boys in my class got invited to a birthday party, and I didn't get invited to the birthday party. I actually got given an invitation, and then it got taken away from me. And this was like devastating to me. Like it was absolutely devastating. And then, you know, like different things happened through school, and I experienced bullying, and I experienced, you know, kids are shitty, and I got treated shitty sometimes.
Well, it was like reiterating over and over, like the same limiting belief that like you're kind of like unwanted and uninvited.
Sure. And all I wanted was to get invited to the party. All I wanted was for like people to want me to be there, right? Subconsciously, and I don't think that it was conscious, I think subconsciously, like I set about creating this life where like I would be indispensable to the party, right? And so what do? You become super fun. You become like the most fun person at the party, and then you start like being like, okay, what else do they need? They need the DJ. So you start DJing, then you're like, okay, I'm going to throw the party. And if I'm throwing the party, then everybody, you know, like I get to choose who goes. I chase this like life of being able to be invited to all these places, whether it's the fashion show, whether it's the event, whether it's the, you know, the nightclub, whether it's like knowing the doorman and him like opening the velvet rope, and then me getting like so much self-esteem from things like that. And like I said at the beginning, like if I'm getting my self-esteem from all this external stuff, then my self-esteem is kind of like built on a foundation of sand.
Well, yeah. And I think it goes back to our conversation about like trying to fill like the hole. And like you think that all the things you've dreamed of, or the things that you think will make you like valid to everyone around you, are the things that are going to make you happy. And I can imagine that like the juxtaposition of the highs to the lows was really difficult. Yeah.
And I think that like, I think nightlife is an incredible industry. I love nightlife. I love people who work nightlife as well. Like whenever I meet nightlife people, I always seem to like gravitate towards them because, you know, like nightlife people are crazy people. And it's one of the the last few unregulated businesses, you know? So I have a lot of love for this industry, but I also reached a point where I was like, oh, it's grimy at the same time. Like I remember, you know, I'm not sure if you remember, like 2 years ago, all these promoters started posting on TikTok, and when you like really see the reality of that, like in stone cold sober in the daytime, of these guys being like, if you look like this, don't even bother DMing me because you're not coming to the club. Like that's fucking gross.
No, it is. And I think the interesting thing about your career, especially in nightlife, was that like you treated it as a self-brand, very much so. I feel like you didn't give into this like weird, like I'm going to here. And
no, but I was like so deep in that, like we called it Models and Bottles were the clubs that I worked at.
Maybe
right?
Later
on, I decided to create this party, I Like You, that was like inclusive to absolutely everybody. Like if you RSVP'd, if you arrived early enough, you were going to get in, right?
Yeah.
But like I came from that world of like only this types of person gets into the room. You have to either be rich, you have to look like a certain way, you have to know the right person, and if you don't, there's no hope, right?
Yeah.
And I lived in that like world for 10, 15 years, and then after a while I looked around and I was like, yeah, but I don't want to like hang out with any of these people. Like I don't want to be around these people. And sure, like I could justify it by being like, well, but I'm being paid. This is my job. Like I'm paid to come here and entertain these people. But then at a certain point, if you are able to monetize other areas of your life and not have to make money this way, it's nicer to not have to make your money that way.
Yeah. Well, and going back to like at this point, you had just started DJing and you were building up your career, but I still think there was a level of like, I mean, you were doing like Yeezy, like fashion week stuff. Like this wasn't just like you doing like DJ side gigs. Like you were getting paid like 10, 15, 20K to do these like really cool events. But I do know that it kind of stopped when the pandemic hit.
Yeah, so I moved to New York City to be a journalist.
Yeah.
My lifelong dream was to write for the New York Times. I got here on August 8, 2011. August 9th, I got a job writing for the New York Times.
Wow.
I got it, and that had been my big goal. And then I was like, now what, you know? And not only that, but like my big goal paid me $50 a story, you know? And
Yeah,
I'm not a person who comes from a wealthy background. I'm not a person who comes from a family who pays my rent or has ever paid my rent. And so I had to figure out ways to survive, and that's where the DJing came in, and that's where like me posting on Instagram to try and make money came in, and all this other stuff. So I had to like build these different careers because the career that I had like envisioned for myself didn't work out.
People could look at even what you've built now and be like, oh, well, like this just all happened like so quickly. And I think even like reading in your story that like you lost everything because of the pandemic. You can't do DJing anymore. You moved to Miami for a period of time. And I thought it was really interesting because like it seems like you kind of hit a low. Like you said you were in your
I've hit a million lows.
Yes, yeah. A low in the sense of like you're like, I thought I had this career, it was going so well, and now it's like all taken from me. What do I do? So in that time, like where was the headspace?
The pandemic was actually like incredibly helpful for me because it gave me a chance to stop, right? Like I was DJing non-stop. I was like doing all this different stuff. I'd had a successful social media career and that had started to like tail off, and still trying to do something when it's not working anymore is like a really, really horrible feeling. Like I had, through the 2010s, I had a pretty successful Instagram account that I made the bulk of my income DJing and on Instagram, right?
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, I guess what I was posting was just super stale. I had between like 40 or 50,000 followers, and sometimes I'd post and get like 80 likes on a photo, and it was like depressing and embarrassing, and and I felt like a complete failure. But I was still DJing a lot, and so I was making good money DJing, right? And then the pandemic hit, and all of a sudden everything stopped. And I downloaded TikTok, and that's when I started posting on TikTok. I had like months in my apartment by myself of this absolute creative freedom. So yes, my bank account was dwindling and I had to go on unemployment, but it wasn't actually depressing. It was like exciting because I was able to unlock this creative thing, and I was able to do it without like the embarrassment or shame of being like, oh no, like people can see me doing this. Nobody could see me because I was like in my apartment on my own with my phone, and it was like amazing. But then the money got to a point where like I literally could not afford to pay the rent in my apartment, and there was an opportunity to go down to Miami, and so I went to Miami. But the opportunity that I went to Miami for was for this job that ended up paying me $500 a month. And I had made the stupid mistake of not negotiating my salary before I arrived. So I arrived, had the negotiation. They're like, yep, we can pay $500 a month. And I was like, oh, I'm screwed.
You're like, fuck.
And that's when I like started DJing again.
So cool. So cool. And then you end up inevitably coming back to New York.
Yep.
And things just skyrocket from there.
I hit 100,000 or so followers on TikTok. I came back to New York. New York was popping off. Everybody's outside. It's warm weather. It's
They're like finally.
Yeah, it's like summer 2021. Everybody wants to be out. And so I start making these videos being like, these are the best parties of the week. I would put my own parties in there, and people would just like come like crazy. Like the first party that I threw, the first I Like You party that I threw had like 800 people show up, and the next one had 1,000, and then I threw one during New York Fashion Week that like 3,000 people came. We had a line around like 4 city blocks.
How did that make you feel? Because I think like you said it in your piece too, that like you viewed yourself as like this validation addict, I think is what you said. And I think it's such powerful words to use, because that's ultimately what you were trying to get through all of this, and you had it. I mean, a line around the block is kind of like that evidence solidification, like I've done it. Did you feel validated?
No. I felt like an imposter. I'm not a real DJ. The only reason people have shown up is because of social media. I'm an influencer DJ, which is not a real thing. Everybody's going to know that I'm fake. Like constant self-doubt and constant like negative self-talk. And I'm also a believer that like whatever we're thinking about will become our reality, right? So I was like pretty miserable. I was pretty unhappy. I isolated myself a lot. And yet I had these like crowds and crowds and crowds of people who would show up to these parties. And I remember I had a conversation with my dad one day, and I think this would have been around this time. And he said to me, you know, Isaac, you can make a decision that you're going to be happy, and you will be happy. And I was just like, oh, congratulations. You just eliminated the need for anybody to have a therapist. Well done, Dad. And I remember just being so angry that he'd said this to me that I would replay this conversation for like months on end and just be angry every time I thought about it. But like 5 years on, I think that he's completely right.
Yeah. Well, the hurt version of me like hears that and immediately is like, fuck you.
Yeah,
like,
that's how I felt.
Like, are you invalidating my depression? Are you invalidating my anxiety? Exactly. But it is so true. And we can become like almost like a victim to our story.
Totally.
And like I always talk about here, like perpetuating your own misery. And it's like, it gets to a certain point where it's like, okay, like, do you just want to be depressed?
Totally.
Like, do you just want to amplify
Yeah,
the
we
voices?
talk about like, I'm not much, but I'm all I think about. I'm the piece of shit in the center of the universe. I'm an egomaniac with an inferiority complex. You know, all of these things. It's like, it doesn't matter. I'm still thinking about myself.
Yeah.
And I think that when I'm sitting there all day thinking about myself, I'm in big trouble.
How do you think that you've navigated to kind of change that conversation in your head?
I had to force myself to like literally stop these thoughts, because I was a person who would walk down the street, and this, I mean, I don't want to curse too much, but like,
you can.
You piece of shit, you fucking piece of shit. Nobody likes you. There's a reason that you're alone. You'll always be alone because you're a fucking piece of shit. And this would just like cycle through my head over and over again all day long. Everybody's going to know you're embarrassing. You've got like, you know, whatever it was just this like these constant like thoughts that would just replay. And because I would like replay them, they would get louder and louder and louder, because I think that in your mind, you talk in your own voice, right? So it's really easy to believe your own voice.
Totally.
And I had to get to a point where I was like, I have to stop this voice in my head. And so it would start, and I'd be like, no, I'm not going to talk. I'm not going to talk to myself like that. I'm not going to talk to myself like that. Everything is okay. I couldn't quite get to the point where I was like looking in the mirror and be like, I love you. Like I couldn't do that.
That still cringes me out a little bit.
But I figured out a way where I could just be like, no, I'm not going to allow that voice to come in.
Totally. I always talk about how like affirmations were a huge part of my healing. And it sounds like so cliche, but like, I think the things that are most helpful to us are cliche for a reason.
Yeah.
And I started just like, I would hear those same voices, and I started saying like, no, like you're very capable, like you know what you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
And like just years compounding of that, I think the voices have gotten quieter. It doesn't mean they go away, but I think you have to be able to separate yourself at some point. I think there is this expectation, especially if you struggle with your mental health, that like one day it's just going to all be gone,
Mm-hmm.
and like they're going to stop. And I think once I realized like, no, that's not necessarily true. Like you just kind of have to push through, was the moment I had a little bit more freedom from that.
That's what I believe as well. Like I don't think that any of this ever stops. I think we're either like going towards something positive or we're going towards something negative. And I try to go towards something positive. I don't always succeed. I also found that like when I have been in these like really like depressive states, I will desperately grab at anything to get myself out of it. And the things that I grab at are things that are never good for me. Okay.
Yeah.
So like historically it was drugs and alcohol. It was validation. It was like, how many likes am I going to get on my post? And then if I don't get the likes, and I'm like, okay, now I want to kill myself. You know?
Yeah.
It's, you know, like it's situationships. It's like whatever it is, right? And the more of that stuff that I pursued, the deeper the hole got, right? And the more of that stuff I would need in order to try and like boost my ego or feel better, right? Like it's the same thing with drinking and drugs. Like you start drinking a lot and then you need more and then you need more and then you need more. And then the next time you need even more than that, right? Because it doesn't work. And so I would like get myself into these like bottomless pits of need and just be like, you know, like grabbing at anything to try and pull myself up to try and make myself feel better. And the things that I was grabbing at are things that actually invariably make me feel worse, which makes me need to grab for more, you know, and I had to also stop this entire cycle of behavior. By stopping that cycle of behavior, I was able to start to build a little bit of self-esteem, because I think that like at the core, like I've never been diagnosed with anything, right? Or everything that I am is self-diagnosed, but my mental health problems really come from low self-esteem. Okay. And if I'm trying to get my self-esteem from external stuff, it doesn't work. But if I can like build up self-esteem, then I don't need this external stuff to feel okay. And then I can start being a more positive contributing member of society.
Totally. It sounds like to me, and correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like maybe like the reason you went for nightlife originally, even though you loved music and like loved what it was from a place of that like need. And so maybe that's why you weren't
I think
happy.
that's why I went towards fashion as well.
Yeah.
And social media. Like, if you are like a low self-esteem validation junkie, what are the 3 best industries you can go into? Social media, nightlife, and fashion.
Yeah. Well, you're still in it now, though. And I think it sounds like there's like a healthy relationship, though. Like you don't seem, and I don't know you, so I don't know, but you seem more satisfied with where you are right now than where you were.
It was my birthday this week on Wednesday. And I woke up on Wednesday being like, this is going to be a good year. Like I'm going to be okay today. Like I'm not going to be sensitive. And then like within 2 hours, I was just like miserable, you know? So like, don't get me wrong. Like I'm I have my good days and I have my off days. In the 2010s, I would say that I spent, like, without exaggerating, hundreds and hundreds of hours in therapist's office talking about my bad relationship with Instagram. Okay, it makes me miserable. I don't know how to live like this, and yet it's paying my rent.
Yeah.
Right. And TikTok was good because it was playing, because I was trying something new. I wasn't so worried about, like, the likes or the comments or the views. And it was just like, I've got nothing to lose. I may as well just give something a go. Right.
Yeah.
And then you start to get successful. And then the more successful you get, you're like, well, I have to just keep doing that thing that's making me successful. And you, like, start gripping tighter and tighter and tighter. And then things don't go as well. And then you're like, oh my God, like, I'm losing it. And so, like,
yeah,
I've gone through, like, all of those things. I think that my relationship with it all has gotten better. My relationship with my girlfriend has been really helpful because she's a really good balancing voice for this stuff. And she will just be like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Like, you're still working, so it doesn't matter. You have to look at the evidence.
Well, I think, like, I'm very similar to you where, like, you start to attach your worth to it because it's your business. And, like, to you, that's what's making you get up every morning. And that's what's validating your existence, essentially. So, like, a lot of my healing has been like, I'm allowed to exist even if I'm not productive. I'm worthy of existing even if I'm not being successful. But, like,
that's hard.
It's really hard.
That's hard.
Especially when you struggle with this stuff. I grew up in a very chaotic home. And so, like, being invalidated and unseen so much, I think, really resulted in this. It sounds like you had a very supportive system.
Except for that time that my dad told me that I could just be happy if I wanted to.
He was trying. He was, like, done with your shit at that point. Yeah, it sounds like that was, like, the 10th conversation, and he was just like...
Oh, no, this would have been the 40,000th conversation.
Yeah, he was like, I'm just going to hard truth him right now. No, but I know that, and I know you, like, slightly just alluded to it, but, like, I know that you're sober, and I know, and we were laughing on the call because I asked you, like, what's the wound of that? Like, why do you think? And you're like, because I'm an alcoholic. But I think this kind of explains what I was asking. It sounds like that was the thing that was perpetuating this misery a bit, and or at least giving you a crutch to.
Yeah.
And do you think that you were able to face yourself head on more once you eliminated it?
Yes, but, like, I mean, I hear this funny joke that people say, like, how do you know you're a real alcoholic? That your life gets much worse when you stop drinking. Because it's like, you stop drinking, you stop pouring the medicine in, and then all of a sudden you're faced with the reality of your feelings, and your feelings suck, you know? And if you're a person like me who's been doing anything in your power to, like, numb out feelings and to avoid feelings, even positive feelings, because if you have a positive feeling, then that will go away.
Yeah.
I don't want to have any excitement. I don't want to have any sadness. I don't want to have any anger. Like, I don't want to have anything. And so then you're walking around and you numb yourself out to the point of being like a robot, basically.
Yeah.
Right? And then all of a sudden your feelings start to come in and you're just like, this is like, I feel like I'm going crazy. Like, I really feel like a true crazy person. And so, like, I don't think sobriety is an easy thing by any stretch of the imagination, but, like, doing a lot of work and trying. I still do a lot of things to try and avoid feelings a lot of the time, but like getting to a point where I can deal with feelings is a much better way than, like, numbing it all out.
Totally. I feel like we're very similar in this way because I feel like I was always the person that, like, even in therapy would, like, recite my trauma like a timeline, and I would just be like, this is what happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and I do this, and yeah, I guess it made me feel like this, but I'm doing this and it's fine. And then my therapist would be like, okay, like, let's go back. Like, but I didn't ever really, like, have access. I always, like, joke that, like, I don't feel below the neck. And that's what I've been really trying to work on, like, recently over the last year. And to your point, it is one of the most uncomfortable things to do. Like, if you are not used to allowing yourself to feel, except for my vice has always been productivity.
Yeah.
I, like, have an addiction to productivity. And I think that there are things besides alcohol and drugs that people lean on. It's just, the one that everybody, like, demonizes is this one. But I think highly ambitious people do lean towards productivity as well, and achievement and validation.
For sure.
And it can be just as damaging.
Totally. I agree. And the easy ways that I, like, numb out these days are, like, Netflix, scrolling on Reels, TikTok. Like, I can still numb out my brain. And it's interesting what you said about the therapy thing, because I had a therapist once tell me that, like, this type, and I'm kind of like you as well, like, the way that I would talk to my therapist, she was like, that's the worst or the most difficult type of person to deal with, because you're, like, intellectualizing you're not feeling anything, you're thinking about what your feelings are, or you're, like, describing your feelings as opposed to actually feeling your feelings. And I went, like, 3 years or something at one point without crying, and this is, like, in sobriety, This was like tail end of the pandemic, because I just been like forcing any feeling down. Like, I don't want to get excited, because if I get excited, then I can get disappointed. I don't want to feel sad. It's easier to be like angry than to be sad. So I'll be like angry.
Totally.
I'll be pissed off, but I won't be sad.
I spent many years way too angry. And then you're like fighting with people, you're breaking relationships because you're just like being toxic as fuck. And then you're like in the guilt after, because you're like, I know I'm wrong.
I know.
It's horrible. No, it's
horrible.
horrible. And especially as an intellectualizer, I think that you can trick a lot of people, and not purposefully, but I think it's subconscious, like into really thinking that you have like done all of this work, or that like you really understand yourself. And I do really understand myself, but that does not mean that I have felt all the parts that I understand.
Yeah, and I also think that like self-knowledge is not that helpful.
No.
I don't actually believe
it's made me crazier.
Yeah. Behavior matters so much more than what we know about ourselves, right? So like, I can know all these things and still act like a completely shitty person, right? I always say to people, like, I don't care how you think, I don't care how you feel, I care how you behave, you know? And I do also believe that like, I can behave my way into changing my mindset, but I can't think my way into changing my behavior necessarily.
That's good. Well, and it's funny because I think as an intellectualizer and a high achiever, I have now almost like bullied and punished myself for not doing the things that I should be doing around feelings or around healing. Even right now, like I feel like I'm at this place where I'm like, why is this not working? Like, what are you doing? Like, feel your feelings. Like, what is going on? And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm doing it again. I'm like bullying myself, and it turns into this spiral. And I think at the end of the day, especially for people like us, it's kind of like just surrendering to like the way things are going, implementing the things you know you should do, and just hoping that change happens over time. Are there maybe mindset shifts you've had to make around this validation stuff, and like around Fashion Week and around these interviews?
I figured out a few years ago that like Fashion Week makes me desperately unhappy, right? So like, I was like, okay, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. And then I got into this relationship with somebody who is very heavily inside the Fashion Week, circuit and the Fashion Week community, and works there. And so I travel with her, right? And the way that I deal with it is, for a few seasons, like, I didn't go to any shows, and I would just be in Paris at the same time, and she could go to the shows and I could go and do interviews with people and stuff. And that worked really, really well for me, because like, I love being in Paris. I just don't want to be at a fashion show, right?
Yeah.
And then the more that I was in Paris, the more I started getting invited back to fashion shows. And so then I'd be like, okay, I'll go to one, I'll go to two. And like, sometimes it's great. I'm okay if I have a reason to be somewhere.
Yeah.
If I don't have a reason to be somewhere, I think I have no business being there.
Yeah, it's like I think like maybe like redefining the relationship to some of these things, because I'm the type of person where, again, like a struggle to sit in the in between, in the like not knowing. So like, to me, it's easier to be black or white. Like, I'm either not doing it or I am doing it. And like the in between is like, well, that's not clear. So like, that's scary. And so I've gotten better at being like, okay, it's actually safe to feel that that's scary, and like, it's okay to like redefine what it means to have different relationships to different things. And guess what? Things are gray. You don't know everything. You can't fix everything. And that's been hard for me.
Yeah, it is hard. It's really, really hard. And like, and I mean, I had an experience at Paris Fashion Week in March. I was there for women's. I got invited to the Celine show.
Fun.
And I came up with this brilliant idea for a video that I was going to do at the Celine show, where I was going to go up to people and get them to recite Celine Dion lyrics at the Celine show.
That's cool.
And it would have been brilliant, right?
Yeah.
And I went and did the first one. And then I was like about to go up to the second person and do it. And I got like this like wave of anxiety, and my face started sweating, my hands started sweating, and I was like shaking. And I was like, full blown body panic mode, and I was like, I cannot do this, I gotta get the fuck out of here. And I just like couldn't bring myself to, like, I couldn't do it. And then of course I was like so angry at myself, because like, I'd had this plan, I had a good reason to be there, I'd been invited, and I was like, I had access to all these like crazy celebrities and stuff, and I just could not do the thing. And so like, sometimes it's still, like, it still happens to me.
Well, and I think it's more so like what you do in the moments after that, because I think the normal pattern, and again, we're going to mess up sometimes, but like the normal pattern would be like to start beating yourself up for missing the opportunity. Like, this happened to me where I've been going through like a really hard time recently, and I did like 3 interviews back to back in LA like a month and a half ago. And like I told you before we started, like when I come to like New York or LA, I like to do a ton in a day. So it's intense. Like, you have to be like very like prepped, and also just like there. Like, you have to not be tired. You can't drink the night before too much. Like, and I just feel like I fell so short. Like, for me, I was like, oh my God, like I had these 3 amazing guests, and I just like was stumbling over my words. I like didn't do the right thing. And I like immediately went into like beat up mode. And it took me like an hour, but I finally like pulled myself out. And I think it's in the moments you pull yourself out that you have to like
be proud of yourself and acknowledge that you did. And then of course I go to edit the episode and I'm like, this was fine. I don't know why.
Yeah, no, also that, like, that's, I mean, I'm sure you've had the experience. I remember, you know, like when I'd be in a low self-esteem, like self-hatred spiral, and I'd be editing a video or something like that, I'd be like, this is the worst shit I've ever done. And then I'd come back to it 3 months later and be like, oh, this is actually kind of good. Like, what am I, you know? But you also talked about, like, what are some things that I do? Like, I have to do things that have nothing to do with work as well.
Yeah.
You know, I have to do things that are like self-esteem building behaviors and like things that just make me happy for the sake of being happy, right? Like one of my favorite things to do is so simple. I like listening to podcasts and riding over the Williamsburg Bridge on a city bike.
Love.
It's so simple. It costs what, like $4? And it genuinely makes me feel good. And I have to do things like that. Like for a while, you know, like I was telling you, I was like completely numbed out for like 3 years. I remember, like, at the end of 2022, the only thing that gave me any purpose was calling my parents every week and being like, guess how much money I made this week, right? That was the only, and my parents are, like, socialists who don't care about money.
Yeah, they were like...
And so, like, I wasn't even impressing the people that I'm trying to impress, right? And
well, you were trying to impress yourself.
Yeah, or whatever. I was just trying to, like, get some, you know, whatever it was. And in January, I was like, I have to, like, have a change. I need to get hobbies because I have no hobbies outside of work, and work can't be my hobby. And I started taking ballroom dance classes. And that filled me, like, it was difficult. It was like a challenge. I had to learn, I had to practice, I had to get comfortable with being like physically close to somebody, and all these things that were so uncomfortable for me. And doing this thing and like learning this new skill, like, and getting a hobby that had nothing to do with work really, really, really helped me. So like, I think it's super important to get hobbies as well, and work cannot be your hobby. I
think I'm there right now. Like, that's where I'm struggling, because like I turned my hobby into my job.
Yeah.
And like, I think that's the hard part about social media is like, if you were truly showing up online authentically, and then for me, it's like the fashion was always like my love and passion. And then like on the other side is like this existential person invested in other people's stories and healing. And I'm now monetizing that. So it's like, okay, what do I do? Like, I don't have time, but two, like, what do I find? And so I think it's having the courage to like redefine like who you are and like what you love, and like not being scared to like find something that could also bring you joy. And I think it's subconscious. Like, I think you just like get stuck in a routine and then like keep yourself back. But then of course you stay up at night wondering like why you're unhappy. And it's like, again, the perpetuating your own misery thing. It pops up.
We've got to have hobbies.
Yeah, gotta have hobbies. I really love what you said though about like feeling the spectrum of the emotions. I was reading this book by Brene Brown, and it really spoke to me about the fact that like a lot of us don't feel joy because you're not allowing yourself to feel sadness. Is there a lot that you feel, especially in like the last, 10 years of your career, that you've had to like feel sad about to be able to experience joy?
I can objectively, with the perspective of like years gone by, look back and be like, damn, man, like you did some crazy, like you did some amazing things. Like, yes, I DJ'd some crazy parties with huge rappers that I absolutely loved. I DJ'd for Kanye West. I DJ'd for Rick Ross. I DJ'd for Fat Joe. I DJ'd a 50 Cent party for like an album release party for 50 Cent. I did some stuff that was like, holy shit, that the 18-year-old Isaac would have just been like, you've got to be joking me. Like, how are you in these rooms, right? But like, I was always so stressed out while I was doing it that I was never there to actually enjoy it. And I think that if I could like go back and change one thing, I just wish that I'd like worried less.
Yeah.
I was constantly in a state of frenetic worry. I was able to show up and do the job, but I was never able to like show up and enjoy the job for myself and be like, wow, look at this. Look at how far you've come. Like, look at how great this is.
Yeah. Yeah. What was the moment that you decided to leave the nightlife scene completely? Like, what was it, a gradual decision, or was there an incident?
It was really like, I mean, I'm writing about this on my Substack right now, and I hate even saying this out loud, but like I'm going to say this out loud, but it's fucking disgusting. But this promoter made a TikTok video being like, a fat girl just DM'd me and asked me to go to the club. No, you can't come to the club with me. You're fat.
Ew.
I'd never seen him before, but he was like, I'm a promoter for Little Sister, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, I work at Little Sister. Like, I don't want to be associated with this shit. Like, I don't want to have anything to do with these people. Like, this fucking sucks. This is gross. This is not an industry I want to be a part of anymore. And I was like, okay, I'm done.
I do not like you.
Yeah. Like, I was just like, I don't want to, who knows? Maybe this guy wasn't even a promoter. Like, maybe this guy was just some dickhead who was like making a video, but like, I knew that there was truth to what he was saying. Yeah. And I was just like, I don't want to be in this like exclusionary business anymore, and I'm not having fun.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, I'm kind of out. So I told my agents at the time, like, I'll DJ events, I'll DJ weddings, I'll DJ like corporate stuff. I don't want to do nightclubs anymore. And I haven't DJ'd a nightclub since like, yeah, I don't know. I don't think I DJ'd a nightclub last year.
It sounds like it didn't really like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like maybe because it was time and you kind of like felt and knew it was time, it didn't really impact like your identity very much after.
No, I know. I mean, for a while I was afraid to say that I didn't want to work nightlife anymore, because once I said it out loud, I knew that I was gonna have to act on it.
Yeah.
And so I like pushed it down for a long time. But I also just found that like every time I would go out and play a club, I just feel like this is miserable for me.
Yeah.
And I started resenting the audience as well. Like I would play songs and be like, oh my God, this is so whack. I can't believe you even enjoy the song. You know,
Yeah,
and then like once you're getting into that, you're like, this is insane. Like you're supposed to be the person who's trying to like make people have fun. And yeah, there's that clown analogy, you know, about the guy goes to the doctor. He's like, doctor, I'm so depressed. Like, I don't know what to do. I can't get happy. And the doctor says, there's this clown. He's in town. Everybody who goes to see him laughs and it'll make you happy. Go see the clown. And the guy goes, doctor, I am that clown.
I loved that part of your Substack.
And that was me as a DJ,
Yeah.
you know? And I was just like, I just can't do this anymore. And then also like, yeah, like I was getting older, it's like more taxing on the body, and I was trying to be in a relationship, and I was very conscious of the fact that like I'm this dude who's like DJing and there's always these photos of these girls behind me and stuff. And I don't like the optics of it. I don't like the feeling of it. I don't like anything about this anymore. I just don't want to do it anymore.
Yeah.
You're also kind of a promoter. You're always having to be like, hey, like I'm playing here, but like we're doing dinner first. Pull up, bring some girls. Like, I don't want to do that anymore. Like, I don't want to fucking do that shit.
I guess that's what I meant maybe when I said that, like, you didn't fit the stereotype. Because I think to me, like, I've always viewed that scene as just that. And I don't think I, like, understood that there's, like, no, these people really care about, like, the music they're playing and, like, bringing a crowd together.
You have to justify it to yourself, right? You're like, oh, yeah, I'm, like, in nightlife, but, like, I'm, like, a nice guy in night, you know, like, but you're still doing the thing.
Yeah. I mean, I talk a lot about how, like, a lot of my mental health issues stemmed from like violating my conscience. And I think if you're doing that over and over again, and then it becomes obvious to you that like you're doing it.
So when you say that, you mean like not being true to yourself?
Yeah. Like violating like who you are and like what you know to be true. And like it was funny because I had that thought when I was reading, and you wrote that like you were at the surf lodge and also reading Little Life on the side. Little Life is a great book, by the way. If anyone wants to fucking go through a dark season, read that book. It's an amazing book. But like I laughed out loud because I was like, this person is just like, is so one way, and then they're dropped into a life that's so different from what they are.
Yeah, so I mean, A Little Life is one of the most depressing, like a beautiful, brilliant book, but it is so gut-wrenching, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm like, going out to Surf Lodge every weekend by myself, you know, like to work there.
Yeah.
I would work like 22 hours over like Friday,
Crazy.
Saturday, Sunday. So like lots and lots of hours. And then I'd go back to my room, listen to the audiobook of A Little Life, which is so depressing. And then be like, okay, walk with my headphones in my ears, walk to the DJ booth, pull them out as I'm like the characters like cutting themselves or something, like doing some hideous
intense
shit, and then go play music. This is a miserable way to live.
Well, yeah, and it's just so obvious like where you align and like the things you care about and the things you find to be beautiful. And again, like no hate. Like I'm sure there's, you know, many beautiful scenarios where like you're creating music and that's like a passion, but like they were conflicting to me, I guess. And I can imagine there was a lot of inner turmoil because of that.
Especially, I think for me was the fact that the types of places that I played and the audiences that I played to were generally speaking not groups of people that I would want to be around if I was not working, right?
Yeah.
Like, I think that what has been built at Surf Lodge is incredible. I cannot stand 95% of the people who go to Surf Lodge.
Well, that's how I am too. I'm such a hater, and like my friends laugh at me, and I'm like, I don't do that. Like I can respect a business. Like I'm like, that's amazing that people are like working so hard and they've built a community of something and like they're successful and they're doing great. You will not catch me dead speaking to anyone there. And it was funny because last time I was in New York, I went out with my friend Eva, and she's like very same flavor as us, and so we were having this like great dinner. And she had a friend that was like DJing a spot down the street. And she's like, no, like seriously, like obviously not our scene, but like he's my friend, like we should stop by. And so I was like, I am doing this for you. But like I could not be caught dead here normally. And it was funny because I was in like a white button down, white trousers. I had like a scarf tied around my waist. Like everyone was in club attire, and I was just like there.
You were doing Carrie Bradshaw.
Yeah, I was just like, it was so funny. But it was the first moment that I was able to like go in and actually just like appreciate that everybody else is having a good time and that I don't have to like be hating to like prove that I don't love something.
Yeah.
Do you feel like over time you've become like less jaded to these kinds of things and like more accepting of the fact that like I just don't like those types of people, or I don't like doing those types of things? Because I feel like I beat myself up sometimes I'm 29 and I've never wanted to go to a club. I've never wanted to take shots. Like, that's not me. I'm the person that's like drinking martini and wine at a restaurant and just talking and wanting to have good conversation. And I think like a lot of people who are listening and a lot of people that I talk to are struggling with the fact that they feel like they need to be something or they need to do what everybody else is doing.
Oh, so my big thing that I think that I've gotten so much better at, but like the overarching theme of my like adolescence and 20s was being so judgmental and so jealous at the same time. So like, okay, I grew up religious, right? And I grew up in a religious community where
Christian?
No, I grew up in the Baha'i faith.
Okay.
And there's no alcohol allowed. There's no sex before marriage allowed. There's no gossip allowed. Like all the things that I wanted to do, I was like not supposed to do, right? And so I would feel very judgmental towards people who did those things while at the same time desperately wanting to do those things.
Totally.
And so then when I would do those things, I would feel guilt and shame, right? So like, I think that so much of my judgment was more like, well, I can't do that. And so therefore I hate you for doing that.
Totally.
You know? But like, as I've gotten older, sure, I would prefer to be at a dinner party and have a good conversation, but like I loved the club.
Yeah.
Like, don't get me wrong. I aged out of the club. You know, like, you know, people are like, oh, nightlife is over. I don't think nightlife is over. If you're a 21-year-old arriving in New York City going to clubs for the first time, you're going to have the time of your life.
Yeah.
I'm 42 years old. I have no business being in a nightclub
anymore.
It
will resurrect if it's dead. Like, it will always stay alive.
Yeah. And it's like, we just age out.
Yeah.
Sure, at this age of my life, I would much rather have like a nice dinner conversation, right? But I was obsessed with clubs for many, many, many years of my life. But like my judgment, I don't think it's good to judge anybody, right? But there's a specific type of like wealthy Americans that I don't love.
I get very existential like in environments. And I think like to your point, it's like I've realized that my judgment says more about me than it like does about everybody else. And like it's okay. I'm never gonna be in there and I'm never gonna talk to the person that like wants to like go party till 4. Like it's just not me. It's not gonna happen. But there's a level of self-acceptance I think that I didn't have. And I think that's what people really struggle with. Like I think people feel that they should be a certain way or that their identity can never change either, because that's scary too. And like it can, and you can't evolve. And like, who am I to, and this is a very religious thing as well, because I grew up very like it's black and white. And like, I see the way it's infiltrated my life and I've seen the way it's damaged my life too. And I think the more I've gotten comfortable with like, there can be gray and like people can like do drugs one weekend and like still be a good person. Because I think I had that judgment too of like, okay, well, you're partying and you're doing all of these irresponsible things. So like, I can't be associated with you. And I think I've gotten more comfortable just like allowing there to be space for things to mean different things. Like, who am I to like the arrogance I think I had unintentionally around like knowing what was best.
Yeah, also, like, we are told very specifically in every single one of the religions that we can't judge other people, right?
Yeah.
So, like, if we are judging other people, we're immediately doing the opposite of what our religion is telling us to do. So, like, even if we are looking at somebody else behave in a way that we deem to be, like, not worthy of whatever, it doesn't matter because we're doing the same thing by judging.
Totally.
So, like, it's really, like, glass house, you know, throwing stones.
Well, and of course, the way like I am, like pendulum swinging, it's like I'm so judgmental, and then I recognize it. Now I feel like shit about myself.
Right,
So
give me an excuse to like to beat myself up.
Yeah. So instead, I've tried to move it to like, well, like, of course you judged people. Like, this is how you grew up. Someone tells you that someone does this, you're going to hell. Like, of course you're going to naturally judge people. So I've tried to like provide some self-compassion there. But again, difficult. It's all difficult.
I have this very specific thing. Okay, so like I have a huge chip on my shoulder about rich people, right? Which is ironic because like I've ended up making a bit of money, right? Like I'm not like rich, but like I ended up making money, so I was able to like afford to be in a lot of these rooms, right? With these people that I like couldn't stand because they came from money, and I like had this big thing against people who came from money. I have this real big thing about right-wing politics. You go to Surf Lodge, and they are all there. They are all there, and I'm just like, and then I'm getting paid to entertain these people. Like, who the fuck am I to be doing that?
Yeah, well, you feel like, again, like you're violating
Yeah, I'm
your
like
conscience.
a fraud. I'm a fraud by taking the money to do these things.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's probably ultimately why you felt like a clown. Like, it wasn't so much the entertainment like aspect of you just like being their entertainer. I think it's more you're like, you know, that you don't feel good in who you are being in those rooms because it's not who you are.
Yeah.
How has I know you said it a little bit, how has like getting into a relationship and having like a partner softened you to yourself?
I think that relationships are the hardest thing in the world, and they require enormous amounts of daily work. And I'm really lucky to be with somebody who I love enormously, and she loves me, and we're like,
how long have you been together?
Like almost 3 years.
Oh wow.
And we are like very patient with each other, and then sometimes we're very impatient with each other, and we have our like good days and we have our bad days, but usually we're not both like crazy on the same day, which is which is a relief. But I think that like the amazing thing about relationships is that they're like a mirror to ourselves, like, right? Like we get to like look at our character defects in the face because we are like enacting them out on somebody else.
Yeah.
And we get to look at all of our like childhood shit. We get to look at all of our like, you know, whatever it is comes up because like the person said something with the tone of voice and you're like, oh yeah. And I'm like, oh damn, I'm 14 years old again. But like, I mean, I think that there's a lot of confidence that comes from being in a relationship and being in a secure relationship where you like know that person's got your back. I think that like my life has exploded as a result of this relationship because I'm traveling so much, and all of the travel has meant that like I've been able to go so much further with my work. You know, like it was my interview series was all about New York City, and now I travel all around the world with her. Yeah. And she's based in Berlin, I'm based here, so we live between Berlin and New York, and then we're in Paris all the time. We go to Asia a lot. Fun. We go all over the place. And she was the person as well who she's very like good strategically. And she was the person who like looked at my account and was like, oh, do you notice that like when you do these interviews, your account does really, really well, and you do all this other content and it kind of doesn't perform so well? What if you just concentrate on this one type of content? And I did that, and like that's when things really, really changed me. So like it's been so good for me, yeah, professionally, personally, emotionally, and it's really difficult at the same time because like I am not an easy person.
Of course. But I do think it's probably interesting too, like as someone who described themselves as like a validation addict, I think validation is good sometimes. Like I think it's normal like to want people to love you and be proud of you. And I can imagine
community is important, right? Of course. Family is important. Like friends are important.
Of course. But I think like probably having like a aligned, authentic, healthy version of it has allowed you to like relinquish the fake versions of it from the past. Because I know that like you told me that like this realization around validation in the clubs and nightlife was pretty recent. And so I wonder if it's just kind of like been a part of that healing, like actually finding like healthy love and validation in a relationship too.
Definitely it is tied. And also the you know, like what I said to you earlier, like I wanted to be in this relationship, and I knew that like working in nightlife is not really conducive to being in a relationship.
You're like, that's the kind of validation I want. Like, I don't need this like fake bullshit validation that doesn't like align with me.
Yeah. And yeah, I think that like, what's that? I mean, I'm not going to be able to remember it, but there's that Drake line about like a small circle and like not very many friends and like, you know, all these, whatever it is, big checks and blah, blah, blah. I can't remember. That's like, we need to like insert it here
that sounds
on screen.
About right.
Yeah, but there's this great thing that Drake says about like keeping your circle small, you know.
Yeah.
And I had this experience 10 years ago, right? Where I dated this girl for a couple of weeks. She was from San Diego, actually. And she said to me when we like ended things, it was like, you know, it was a very quick relationship. It ended after 2 weeks, right? And after 2 weeks, she was like, hey, like, you know, we're like ending things. I have to say something to you. And she was like, I've witnessed like of your life in New York City, and you have like, you have so many friends, you have so many acquaintances. She's like, you have 100 pennies. She's like, I have 4 quarters, but you have 100 pennies.
That's so
and
good.
I remember like that has stuck with me, and that will stick with me for the rest of my life. But like she had 4 good friends, right? And they had her back no matter what. I had 100 people who I could text all day long and stuff. But like, did any of them actually have my back? I don't know. And I think that as I've gotten older, I've really, really tried to put a lot more energy and a lot more work into these like closer relationships to build them up. Because at the end of the day, they're the people who are going to be there for you. And this is the problem with nightlife. Like, you have more friends than God when you're in nightlife.
Yeah.
But like, are those people actually going to want to hear from you when you're in trouble?
Totally. Well, and I think you were like, of course, like reaching to fix the problem and like by filling all the gaps, but then like it's not filling the gap because it's not true, authentic friendship. So then you're like left fucking unhappy again, and like the perpetuation of misery begins again. So I think that's like, I mean, I'm proud that I thought you were going to say something really negative about the San Diego girl, and I was like, fuck,
No, that's
great. That's like so prophetic.
I'll always remember that. I have 4 quarters, you have 100 pennies.
You got a little therapy session during your breakup.
Yep.
Last question for you. I obviously, like, I think we've alluded to it, but like, I feel like, you know, you've had a little bit of contention with failure. Like, how have you redefined like what failure is to you now? Like, it sounds like you've kind of healed a little bit of that, though you're working on it. I mean, you said in your Substack that like failure could not be tolerated. Like, do you feel like you've softened that a bit?
I think it's really hard.
Yeah.
I think it's really hard because, let's face it, the majority of my work comes from posting on the internet, and the way that you get work is by posting on the internet and it being successful. And if it's not successful, you run the risk of no longer working, right? So like, I'm not going to lie. I still care about not failing.
Yeah.
I probably care more about not failing than I care about success a lot of the time. So like, no, I don't have the healthiest relationship with it, but I also am getting better at zooming out and recognizing that like one video's performance does not change my life. One bad DJ set does not change my life. All of this stuff is just like tiny little steps as I'm walking up a mountain.
Totally.
And I think that the biggest lesson that I have to learn and that I'm trying to learn is to get some perspective on my own life.
Yeah.
And I have to zoom out in order to do that.
Which is so hard. It's so hard. And like, I'm the same way. And I think I've just like redefined like what actually is failure. Because like me like continuing to try over and over and over again and like things not working, like that's just life. Our job is weird. Like, and I can't imagine like yours too. It's at such a higher caliber, but like even for me, it's like if something doesn't perform, it is kind of like, well, fuck, like this brand ad did not perform. Like they're not going to want to re-sign, whatever.
But also brand ads almost never perform because it's like impossible content.
I want like a meeting. Succeed. I want a meeting with the Instagram guy. Like I have so much to say. No, but I do think it's like
get Adam Mosseri on the pod.
Could you imagine? I'd be like, we have a lot of questions. No, but I do think it's about being like comparing ourselves almost to like a normal quote unquote job and being like, do they just like never ever fail like ever? And I think that's
I've thought about this as well, and I'm thinking like, you know, if I was like a salesperson, then I'd be like, oh my god, I didn't sell enough, or I sold more yesterday and today I didn't sell as much, therefore I suck.
Yeah.
So like, I think that I could do this in any job that I have.
Totally, I would too. But like, would we look at like the 100 calls of the day and be like, call ourselves a failure if all 100 did not sign? Like, I don't know. Like, I think I'd be more like, it's a volumes game. Like, I'm going to hit that like total at the end.
I think that if you have the personality that is like obsessed with this stuff, you'll figure out a way of like turning yourself crazy with it.
Yeah, no, yeah, for sure. And I think that's just real. You can't like fully heal ever. The healing journey never stops, unfortunately. I think there's something beautiful about being able to reinvent and look at yourself and continue to look at yourself and like learn new things. But on bad days, I'm like, this fucking sucks.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you.
Ask everybody before they leave. Sorry, I lied. One more question. I ask everybody before they leave, looking back at everything you've been through, ups and downs of your experience, just your careers, your mental health. It's obviously continuing, but looking back, how do you see it all?
I have a photograph of myself in my hallway of me at like 5 years old. And I have to look at that every day as I'm like walking out the door. And I'm like, everything's going to be okay.
And it has been.
And it has been okay. You know, like everything's going to be like, and like I look at that kid and I'm like, I know how fucking worried you're going to be. I know how terrified you're going to be and how like bad you're going to feel and how much you're going to hate yourself sometimes. And everything is actually going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I feel like I have to do that. Like I have to look at the timeline and be like, okay, what have you gone through? This is very minor compared to those things. Like you're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And like using it as proof that like it all ends up working out. It's a part of the experience.
Exactly.
Thank you for coming on.
I like you.
Oh, thanks. I'm honored. Please share where people can follow you. And I'm obviously going to put like your socials in the Substack in the description, but just so people can hear it.
Cool. I'm Isaac Likes on Instagram, ISAACLIKES_, and then isaaclikes.substack.com.
Yay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the episode, and I hope you leave here feeling motivated and inspired. Do not forget to rate and review the pod on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and don't forget to follow How I See It Pod so you can keep up with podcast updates and see who's coming on next. And if you're not already, come join the fam and follow at How Han Sees It. Thank you guys.